Every day that I've been running, I've been stumbling onto higher ground. I'm passing you by now, and every step I take, I see the same old faces turning round. It made me realize I might not belong, I might not behave, I might not be beautiful every day, I might not be right. Don't stand in my way. I might just break every rule ever made. Am I a popular outcast, a loner with no past? I'm good either way. I'm forever out of place. I'm forever out of place.
Non-stop rock talk with Tyson Friday. Hey Kane, welcome to Non-Stop Rock Talk. It's really great to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, Tyson, I'm happy to be here, to be honest with you. I mean, everybody's trying to survive, so we're both alive and kicking, and that's good news.
Yeah, that's very good news. So, I mean, I can't believe it's been, we spoke last year, it's been over a year, and that was with the release of The New Normal.
Sure.
For me, after a year of having listened to the album multiple times, I think Forever Out of Place is probably my favorite track on the album.
Yeah.
What I love is how that song builds. I mean, that intro is really cool, that little guitar part. And then, and then the song kind of, it's like it starts off slow and then that chorus just hits you, man. It's such a good tune.
Yeah, I remember, when we finished our first vocal on it.
Yeah.
We were thinking, the song is really good, but there were no peaks or valleys in the song. In other words, it was kind of like a flat line.
Right.
It was the same level. So we started thinking, how can we, it was one of the first songs we did. And I was thinking, why don't we take a cinematic approach to every song on the record? So, lyrics are such a huge deal. And if you think of it, it's a script. The greatest singers are great actors because they understand the words and they're really singing a message that they understand. And that requires not only, singing skills and approach and a good set of instincts on what to do, but if you're a good actor, you can also play the part of whoever is singing, and hopefully, that part is close to who you legitimately are. So, we started, it's got that intro, and then it's got this sort of atmospheric beginning with these heavy drums, and then, by the time we hit the last chorus, we're just nailing that thing. The bridge is where it kind of explodes, and then the chorus is where the final choruses is where we, hit the peak of the song. So yeah, you notice that, and it's got that definite vertical curve all the way to the end.
Yeah, it's so good. It's one of those songs where you're like, you listen to it, and to me, it's like, oh, that song could be so much longer. I've got to listen to that again. It's just
and you'll notice there's no guitar solo in the middle and stuff like that. And we just didn't want to follow the script. I mean, it's tough. When you're kind of known as a guitar player as well.
Yeah.
You figure, well, I have to do a guitar play. Well, you don't have a guitar solo. Well, you don't have to do anything. You just got to do what you believe is right. For the song, and that song, I think that's one of the ones I wrote with Brett from Shinedown, and his vocal approaches are very, very intense, very effortless for him. He's such a great singer, so we started writing the song with his influence there and his singing and everything, so it was a pretty high standard to kind of step into the album with, So, I mean, and the record took me 3 years to record.
Wow.
So, God bless Frontiers for,
being patient.
Being patient, yeah. I mean, at one point they said, where the fuck is the record? So I had to wrap it up.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, King of the World is another track that I really love too. I mean, it's climatic as well. I mean, in the chorus, the chords are so tight and heavy, the drums are heavy. Then moving into the second verse, the percussion is really moving the song. It's kind of different. Again, it's those great build-ups. As a lead-off track, I think it bodes well to what the album will be. And making the decision in terms of a lead-off track, was that one that you always had in mind to use as a lead-off track?
Yeah. Well, this experience was one of those things. First of all, I was off the grid for a long time, and I never stopped singing or playing guitar and everything. But when you're in front of a mic, or you're in an entirely different situation is when you're walking up on stage. Well, that's crunch time. That's when reality sets in. So you have to. If you've been away for a while, you have to get in there and just realize that there's a certain amount of discovery that's going to take place, in terms of, what's going to happen, and not being 100% aware of like what the end result was going to be. I mean, I was, praying that I still had, my skills intact, so to speak, even though I believed I did, but, it's like when you listen back to yourself on a recording, you're going, Jesus, that's me talking? What the fuck? So, a couple of times I heard my voice back and I went, hey, it sounds pretty good. It's not too bad. So, you could see that the first version of Forever Out of Place is entirely different from the last one. I mean, we were a year and a half into it. We decided to scrap all the vocals and not do some of the songs we were doing. I mean, fortunately, I had a full-on studio with this guy, Alexander Track, who's a really fantastic musician, producer, and, he's done a truckload of stuff, and he has a studio. So we got into this almost like, we were two laboratory scientists trying to make this thing, different and special. So, every story, some stories are bigger than others, but every song has a story, attached to it. So, so the one for those two songs were basically, you picked on two songs that were kind of the initiation of fire for me, because I think maybe King of the World was the first song we did.
Right.
And then it ended up being the first song in the record. So we just, once we had everything there, we tried to balance it out and make sure that beginning of the end had sort of a special prominent position in the CD, because it was the greatest accomplishment, that I think that I pulled off. So
yeah, and that is a great song. And I mean, the video is really cool too.
Yeah. When you say video, the video to that song, Tyson, it was such a fucking nightmare. I mean, I can't even tell you what I went through. Not the people involved. In other words, think of it this way, I asked Alyssa if she's interested in, singing on the record.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, yeah. But she goes, you got to send me a song, though. I sent her the song. She wrote back immediately, I want to do it. Alice, everybody was saying to me, dude, no way. And, Alice and I are just best friends. So, it's so funny because I figured he'd be on tour. And, I've told this story before. I don't like repeating story in interviews, but this is kind of funny, is that I called him and, I said, would you like to sing on the record? I figured, maybe a month down the road. He said, hey, I'm in town. I'll be right over. So it was literally one phone call. And 2 or 3 hours later, I had Alice Cooper on the record. And I didn't want to do a thing where he just says something or says boo or, just something, real. So I wanted to do a duet with him, and initially, Alyssa wasn't on the record. It was just Alice. So, we listened to it and then, we got it. So it was kind of amazing. And I was about to do the guitar solo. And I just sort of imagined Alyssa just dropping out of the sky and detonating the whole song just right in the middle of it rather than a guitar solo.
Yeah.
And when she agreed to do it, I just so you know, it was absolutely shocking how great what she did is. If you sit back and listen to like the quote unquote singing voice, there's points of it where it sounds like almost like a saxophone. It's just her singing is, her solo album's coming out. It's gonna be pretty shockingly amazing. But regardless of that, the video, I have to get Alyssa and Alice in the same place at the same time. Otherwise, if I do a split screen thing or streaming or, some sort of video thing, it's not going to have the same effect. So I mentioned it to Alyssa, and she said, wherever you guys are, I will fly there to be in the video. Wow. So I went, okay, well, that's awesome. So I call up and I find out that, Alice is going to be in Vancouver, and he's got 3 days off. So I asked Alyssa if it was possible to do that day. Dude, she flew from Europe to Montreal, stayed at the airport for 4 hours, and then flew from Montreal all the way to Vancouver, which that's a massive flight, another one. And, she just kicked ass on the video. I think she kicked both guys' asses, the way she was just so amazing in the video, but what are you going to do? Yeah. And, it was just one of those perfect situations. And so, I'm just wondering how much information I give you. Just so you know, the day of the production, the location got burned. So we had to find another location the day of the shoot.
Oh, wow.
So we go to an airport. Before, we had this amazing sort of derelict kind of a building that was just torn up, and it just would have been a perfect location for us. Now we have this airport hangar, and, on the inside, it looks like somebody's garage. We were so late, we didn't have time to sort of clear everything out, so we just had to shoot it. Some of the lights didn't show up. It was such a clusterfuck. And then at the end of the day, and I'm not going to say who it was none of the, talent. Mm-hmm. But somebody got the video or the footage in camera and wouldn't give it back for like 3 months.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So, can you imagine? And the record company's going, where's the video? So, that was just a half of it, So the point is that when we finally got the video, I had my guys, I have, we do film stuff. So, my company. So we were trying to edit it properly, and we didn't have the footage because I was there for 4 days. I was only able to shoot for 1 day. And then the big finale for me was not going to be Alice and his wife in front of a nuclear bomb. I had my gun guitar being mailed to Vancouver. It didn't make it through customs, and they were actually going to throw it away.
No.
And so, yeah. So instead of, and we had a rig set up. There was a guy up there that had done the special effects for, in-camera effects for Bourne Identity and Batman, and he was fully into helping out. So he just set up this rig where it shot 40 feet of flame. It was extremely dangerous, but we were going to do that with the gun guitar. And, I torch the world, that sort of a thing. And, customs didn't let it through, and then I wasn't able to shoot, and then, the guy held the video, and, it's just unbelievable. So, people never really know some of the trials and tribulations that are behind any of these productions. But the other thing, too, is, as somebody who's done a bunch of them, you can't complain because every film, everything that you see that finally gets on some kind of a screen, there's been, a lot of calamity and fires and explosions during the whole thing. It's just part of the game. But that's the first time I ever told anybody what we went through with the video.
Yeah, so, well, because we had talked about it because the video hadn't been out. It wasn't out yet. And yeah. we talked about it, but not about any of the stuff that went on behind the scenes. That's crazy, man. Wow. Well,
first of all, Canada to me is one of the greatest places on the planet. Montreal is might be, if I'm going to sit back and just not, get too subjective about it, might be the best city I've ever been in. It's just always been, design-wise and architecture and layout and just the basic feel of Montreal has been just really clean and really ahead of the curve, constantly. So, and the other thing, too, is I'm such growing up, I was such a hockey fan. I mean, when I was with Alice and I was at the Cow Palace in Calgary, is that where that is? I think my memory's not that good.
Saddle Dome.
But anyway,
Saddle Dome,
what?
Calgary. Saddle Dome is Calgary.
Saddle Dome, that's it.
Yeah.
I was in the locker room getting ready to play, and all I could think of was Theron Fleury was in here. You know, it was like, because he was like, you know, I just loved how, you know, because I'm in LA and then Gretzky came to LA, and I just loved that rivalry, and I just loved Theron Fleury. I just thought, you know, he was awesome. So you know, I come from that sort of ultimate respect and sort of admiration of just the general, you know, because you guys created hockey. It's just, that's all you ever had to do to be the greatest country in the world. And then, you know, some of the things like Vancouver, what an amazing city. I mean, I had a great time while I was there, even though I was supposed to be shooting, but I was just like, you know, going all over the place.
That's
awesome. But yeah, so, you know, the other thing on that song is that I got the drummer from Baby Metal, Aoyama Hideki,
right.
And you know what the point is that song started, you know, just like any other song, and then it just sort of evolved into this big deal where these big players, you know, agreed to help out and be on the song and get into it, and they love the music and the way they performed and everything. So. That's also part of the story behind any sort of recordings or, you know, whatever. There's like amazing things that happen, and then there's things that just, you know, are just set up to just blow up the whole fucking thing and ruin it, and you just got to fight through it. So
wow. So the gun guitar that didn't make it through customs, was that the original gun guitar?
No, the original, you know, it's just so funny. The guy that signed me to Geffen, his name's Michael Alago. He signed. I don't know if you know who he is, but he signed Metallica.
Okay.
He signed White Zombie, Flotsam and Jetsam. I mean, if you look up his name, the people he discovered, the guy's he's godlike in that way.
Right.
And I was just talking to him because I've got, you know, we're doing a director's cut of the video, and there's something else coming up that's really wild that I'm just not at liberty to say yet. And, you know, I hate when people do that. But, you know, it's only because it's not 100% nailed down. But if it gets nailed down, it's going to be fantastic. And I got 2 other videos going. And the guys I got a different, you know, crew, like, you know, full-on pro editors doing the director's cut. And they want me to get the gun guitar. So Michael said, well, that's awesome. Just, you know, shoot yourself playing the gun guitar. And I said, well, I don't have any. And he was like, what? And, I used to have 3. I gave them all away. I gave one of them away. I gave one to the Hard Rock Cafe in New Orleans. I think it's in New Orleans. And then the other one, a collector bought from me, but I don't have anything. And he said, you don't have a gun guitar from those days? And I said, dude, I don't have one copy of my Geffen record at my house.
Wow.
And he was like, why? And I said, because I just hit eject on my past, always. I always did that through my whole life. So, you know, you can imagine the memorabilia and gold records and all the stuff that most people have on their wall. You know, I have nothing here.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I have some copies of the new record. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just been my way of going through life. So I asked Rick Johnson, I said, you know, do you have a gun guitar there? To me, it doesn't look as good, but, you know, the guy's such a great designer. It would kick ass. It would almost be like, you know, here's the new improved model.
Yeah.
But, you know, never made it, so.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, that's, I'm surprised. I mean, you mentioning that you don't have anything, but it makes sense though, too. I mean, there's only, like you said, moving on, moving forward, and that's it.
Well, my career was not like, for example, Rudy Sarzo. I was at his house recently, and, you know, he's got everything all over. There's one area of his place that's just kind of a museum, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I always laugh with Rudy. He just, you know, he went from one huge band to another. That's all he did.
I know.
You know? And I said to him, it's not because of the way you play. It's because you're a really nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was laughing. But, you know, I'm kidding. He's a phenomenal player. And you know, he is one of those guys, if he's on the bus, he is never the problem. Bus rides with bands, there's always somebody or something going on. There was one time with, the Alice Cooper tour. Alice and I couldn't stay in my bunk because I was too big back in those days. I just couldn't fit. I mean, I could, but it was very claustrophobic for me. So I ended up staying in the main room in the back of the bus with Alice, and there were, beds on either side. Although we shared the same. No, I'm kidding. No, but there were beds on either side, and we would just watch. He's obsessed with kung fu movies and horror films, so that's what we would watch. Through the whole tour. We'd just be there. Everybody, it'd be like a 12-hour drive, and he and I would just be nodding out every 5 seconds, and then he'd get up and change the VHS, which is what we were using back then.
Yeah.
And so there was one time there was a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and the whole band is there with the road manager. And they said, "Listen, sorry to bug you guys." He said, "But somebody stole the peanut butter on the bus." And I went, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, we had a communal peanut butter. It was I saw it. It was this giant ass jug of peanut butter.
Yeah.
Must have, like from Costco or something. You can live on this for 8 years. But somebody stole it." So I was going, "Oh, dude, that's awful." I was trying not to laugh, and I said, "Well, what?" And Kip goes, "I think I know who took it." And I said, "Yeah, who's that?" And he goes, "It's this dancer." Because, Alice had a troupe of dancers and performers that would come out, during some of the songs and, Welcome to My Nightmare or whatever. I don't know. So, so it's really funny. We had got this whole thing together, and we caught the guy, and we saw him. We went into his room and found the peanut butter. The guy stole peanut butter from the bus. So, those are the type of stupid fucking things that are going on all the time on a tour. You think these, musicians sitting there going, "Well, I believe that was a really great show. And although I think, Tommy Lee, you might have hit the snare too many times." They're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of knuckleheads like on a bus that are stuck together for a year, so there's going to be issues and stuff. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of a common thing where people end up, butting heads and having problems or whatever. So
that's funny. But I mean, I'm just imagining those guys knocking on the door, all of them. "Someone took the peanut butter, man."
Every band member was there with this guy, Larry, who was the road manager, standing and he said, "Sorry to bother you guys. Somebody stole the peanut butter." And I'm going, "Well, we're driving. What do you want me to do?" You know what I mean? "You guys sit down, and Alice and I will figure this out." I didn't know what to say.
It's almost like those, like when you go and one of the kids, one of your brothers or sisters does something wrong, and you have to. We better go confront Alice about it.
It's just funny that you're right. They told on him, to us. So I ended up sitting down with Kip, and Kip and I devised a plan. And Kip, he sort of engineered the arrest, who found the guy. And Alice was imitating the guy in his bathroom with a spoon eating peanut butter. I mean, I got to tell you, Alice is the funniest fucking guy I have ever met. I mean, people may not know this, but see, the thing is that a guy that's walking around with such a massive intellect like that,
yeah,
if you sort of access his humor and how he views the world, because he's a really positive person, very positive person.
Right.
And so he just, so he's not morbid, he's not depressed, so it's easy for him to be funny. And I remember, I went down to meet him the very first time, and Bob Ezrin and Shep Gordon and the whole, this whole posse of people that, had changed culture so radically, So I went down there, and Alice and I became best friends within 2 minutes. So, and then he just started bouncing off all these jokes, and I was imitating people and everything. And so, yeah, he's got to be one of the funniest guys I ever met. And you can imagine, his vision of this. When everybody left, he looked at me and just started cracking up. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
that is so good. So in terms of making another album or more albums, is that the plan?
I'm trying to wrap my head around why I would do that. And see, my view of things is I love recording at this point. I love doing videos. I have 3 more coming out. And it's based on the record. And my situation with Frontiers is over. It was a 1-record deal. So they're not even promoting the record.
No.
So my point is that I don't look at this like when I left the music industry before and just went off the grid for 100 years. It's because of the music industry, the way it functions, the way it works. It's first of all, even the people that are pulling down serious money off of it. And I'm not talking about artists. I'm talking about the record companies. And by the way, the record companies are all fine, because when the CD sales went away. It's like any sort of shift in technology or business. The really smart guys took advantage of it. So they don't have to print anything anymore. They don't have to print CDs anymore.
Yeah.
Then they said, okay, we don't need as much staff. So they fired, hundreds and hundreds of people. And then, we because of the way the industry is, I'm sorry, we can't finance a tour. You're going to have to, find financing somebody. In other words, they're making their profit level is still, putting serious money into the pockets of the people that own these companies or the people that run them and stuff like that. There's still a lot of big paychecks going on. It's just not going to musicians unless, you're in that sort of upper echelon.
Right.
But you can see even now, I mean, bands like, unbelievably fantastic bands like Me. No, kidding. That was a joke. I know, but like Motley Crue,
yeah.
And bands like that, they're touring, Poison and Alice,
Def Leppard,
Arch Enemy, Fall. What's the name of that band? Volbeat. Bands like that. The way they make the most out of their money is not necessarily YouTube views, and it's not necessarily sales of records or streaming. It's with live shows.
Right.
So. I personally, because I was gone so long, I think I had taken myself out of that realm. In other words, if I said, "Oh, I want to tour," well, I would have to spend a couple of years, playing in front of 10 people in clubs, and some of my friends, you wouldn't even believe it, but that's what they're doing. In other words, they might be in a big band, mm-hmm. but when they do their solo thing, there's just nobody in the club.
That's right.
So I would have to do that for a while to even get my standing and my notoriety and my visibility back up, and hopefully I will be making great records along the way and people will enjoy them. Well, the system has kind of been disassembled, not just because of this current, virus stupidity, but because, just the way the music industry is set up, that basically all you have are live shows and you make records to kind of promote the live show as opposed to, it used to be the other way around. So my point is I made a record. It took me 3 years. I'm not with a label right now, which, I knew that I wouldn't be as soon as this record had run its course. So, do I want to get into it and do another record? So what would I do? I'd contact a record company. And, the record companies at the level that I would be signing, and a lot of artists will sign with, although they won't admit it, the budgets aren't what they used to be. People are freaked out. My first budget on MCA was $250,000 back in the day.
Yeah.
And that, that's a good chunk of cash for an unknown artist,
yeah.
So these days it's not even approaching that, which is fine. I'm not doing it for the money, but I'm going to hand this product that I'm making to a record company. I'm not going to see anything back from it in terms of residuals. It's just not the way they're set up. They all have a very hard-coded plan, You make a record, they give you as little money as possible, and then you're off the grid within 4 weeks after the release. Yeah. And that's how they preserve, being in the black. Because they keep making... they're able to make money.
Yeah.
So that way. So in other words, they put out it less and they get, so if they sell, let's say 10,000, 20,000, 30, 40,000 CDs, they've made their money back and they put as little out as possible. The promo for these record companies are websites. There's no sort of hard copy that they don't go to magazines. get creative. They don't put you in events. They, back in the day, the promo people were just sweating blood every day trying to get you some sort of visibility around the world. It's not like that anymore. Now I'm not bagging on Frontiers. I think Frontiers is absolutely great. I mean, and I'm not saying this because they're going to do anything for me, because they probably hate my guts at this point. But because I took so long, and then I'm kind of a wise ass, so I'm not sure they like me. As a matter of fact, it's pretty safe to say that they don't. But Serafino and Mario are absolutely incredible people, because you think about it, they started their record company in their apartment, and they have a true sort of evangelist, altruistic view of everything. They want 80s music to survive, and they really legitimately do believe that. And I think in the light of that, those are two absolute warriors, and they're genius guys. They'll never take my phone call again, but I'll always say good things about them. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to make another record. Well, if I do, what I might do is just put out a song once in a while with a video. I think videos, combine the best of two worlds, obviously, with the visuals and then with, the music. I think it's like such a perfect marriage, and, no shit. And I'm not going to be doing, live shows. I'm just not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So this is the way I'm going to reach people and communicate with people, is these next videos coming up. The final video is going to be for a song called, let me see, what is it called? I think it's the song "What's Wrong with Me," but I have "Leave Me in the Dark" is coming out, and then the director's cut. So and the last video is going to be very, very sort of violent and psychotic, and it's just going to be just a lot of fun, because I'm a real fan of like gore films and horror films from back in the day. So I'm not planning on making any more records, especially not with a record company. If I do it, I'll finance it myself and make a record and all that stuff. But it's kind of like without a real record company that's really pushing you hard, and those are hard to find these days. Yeah. It's kind of a tough go. So
yeah, and I mean, mentioning the Frontiers thing, it is weird, because like you said, and I didn't understand why you would only see, they promote it going into it, and then 4 weeks later you wouldn't hear anything more about it. And
that's how they stay alive. Yeah. In other words, if you made a record and they gave you X amount of dollars, and as soon as they find a profit margin, and that could be 6,000 copies sold, and they made $4,000, right? You're done.
Right.
There's no reason. They're not thinking of like a year from now. They're not thinking of financing a tour. They're not thinking of giving you another video. Unless something untoward happens and you suddenly make a shit load of money. But there's a few bands that do well for them. And when I say they do well for them, compared to what they used to do,
right,
it's almost nothing. But by the same token, the profit margin is very. I'm not going to mention anything, but is very good for them. And then they put out 17,000 records a year. So I think that's the other part of their model. So they're not staffed where they can be working like 8 records at a time. Yeah. So
Yeah, and
so that's.
Oh, sir. And I'm thankful for them, because me as a fan of that genre, I'm thankful that they're putting it. I buy a lot of the Frontiers product.
Dude, and it's because that's their mission. Yeah. They really believe in it. They're not, they have to be businessmen, as always. It's the same thing. Like, people always said to me, "What was it like, doing business with Kiss?" Because I wrote that song, "Take It Off" with them.
Right.
And I said it was perfect. Gene and Paul, they set the parameters up right from the beginning. If you don't want to sign the contract, get into it with them. But once you sign it, that's it. I think a lot of musicians feel like, I'm going to sign this contract. And they didn't rip me off. I'm just saying, with record companies, where the record company takes everything, 50% of all the profit, you got to fuck. So they're like completely like, hey, this isn't fair. I want out of my contract. Well, it's like, no, knucklehead, you signed it. You know, that's the reality of the music business part of it. And you know, Gene and Paul were just straight up. There's never been an issue, nothing. You know, this is the deal, and they stick with it. And it's the same thing with with Frontiers and other labels like that. Which they're saying is, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to put out. We're not going to go an inch further than this. And you know, once you sign the deal, you got to just accept that. You know, and on top of everything, you know, once the recordings started coming in and they were listening to the recordings, they were very inspirational, very, very supportive, and really, really great people. Their whole staff is like that. There's one guy that's kind of a nitwit, but, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm sure he thinks the same of me.
That's funny. That's funny, man.
With a little bit of Satan thrown in.
With a little bit of Satan, perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
When we talked last year, I actually mentioned that I had a vinyl of your solo album, your first one, and I actually my house
that album cover. No, go ahead.
My house got robbed, and they took it. And yeah,
really,
200 albums, 200 vinyls, and I've said this on the show before. I've been robbed, and because some of the artists of those albums I had were guys I was talking to, right? So they stole my Kane Roberts with the machine gun with you on the cover. But I got a new one, so I'm happy.
Oh, you got a guy. That's good, because I'll never, you know... Did I tell you the story of the cover?
Yeah, and how it said Hain and Cake?
No, it said Cake Roberts and then Hain.
Hain, yeah.
And so, you know, it was a pretty ridiculous run with that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe you said...
And that was a record that I was just figuring stuff. I was learning as I was going along.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I recorded it with Michael Wagner, and it was there's some great moments on that record. You know, I love certain aspects of it. Other parts, you know, I recorded that touring with Alice. And, you know, if you ever, you know, see people go, yeah, there's music school, and this is the way you get great. The way you learn your craft is, you know, you do a tour with Alice Cooper or somebody like that. Because at the end of the first tour, I was going, oh, okay, well, this is what it's like, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it's. I mean, I love the album, and I still listen.
Oh, I do too. No,
I love it.
I'm not saying. I'm saying it reflected where I was at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, thank God I had Michael Wagner there and some other, you know, really talented people that were working on it with us. So
that was like, for me, that was one of those kind of albums that, like in Canada, sometimes it was hard to get stuff. So It was one of those, I think I originally had it on tape, and I got it from a buddy who got it down in the States. But it was one of those elusive albums that I could never seem to find for the longest time.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I finally got it, it was like, oh, wow. And that was on tape. And then getting the vinyl, I was just like, it was one of those ones that I kind of like really took care of and cherished. And then for it to get stolen. And I was,
well, where are you in Canada?
I am about an hour, 40 minutes from Toronto.
From Toronto.
From Toronto.
Yeah, well, if I'm ever in Canada and you're around, I'll sign it for you. I don't know if it's signed or whatever. But,
you know, that would be awesome. No, that would be
it's that'll be $6 too. No, okay. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you are a horror fan. Are you what kind of like going back to the horror genre?
Well, no. Well, there's some great moments in horror that are taking place today. There's a film by an Iranian woman called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And it is the creepiest motherfucking film I've seen in years. It's just so good. You know, so the thing is that each era, you know, has different types of films. You know, 1,000 years ago, there were all those Hammer films, which I didn't find scary, you know, at all, you know, whenever I've seen them. Mm-hmm. Evil Dead was a big moment for me, the Sam Raimi film. And then, and by the way, I met his son, Ted Raimi, when we shot Shocker.
Cool.
The Wes Craven movie. Yeah. And boy, that guy's he's so funny. He does a better Jerry Lewis than Alice.
Wow.
So, you know, and then of course, Exorcist was, you know, mind blowing. And it still is to a certain extent, you know, even these days. But but a film like The Ring, or I thought one of the Paranormals was really good.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of a genre. But I look, a lot of times I'll look for different directors. There's one director, Miike. He's a Japanese director, and his films are so violent they're considered to almost be horror films. He has a film called Ichi the Killer. Mm-hmm. And one of the scenes is they got a guy, he's tied up, his shirt is off, and he's hanging from hooks, so he's face down, and they just pour sulfuric acid all over his back, and it just like dissolves his skin and his spine and everything. It's really awful. So, it's one of those films where I get sort of this visceral sort of response to it. I kind of like that. It's almost like you airbrush any sort of like sensibilities that you might have. So, I mean, it just varies in terms of horror films. But I would recommend that film, A Girl Walks Home at Night Alone. Check that out, because
I'm kind of a horror.
They do one of those classic things where a little kid's walking and it's late at night. He's got a skateboard. And you didn't think people skateboarded in Iran, but they do.
Wow.
And he looks back, and way in the distance is this shrouded figure wearing a black cowl. You can just see a little bit of a white on the face. So, of course, he's walking, and then he looks back, and she's closer. Of course, the third time he looks back, her face is right there. Fucking scares the shit out of you, I'm telling you. I know it sounds so obvious, but it's an awesome film that way, and it's completely an unexpected type of vampire film that you would never imagine. So so it varies for me, but I mean, I watch the full spectrum of the old ones and the new ones.
Yeah, and so I mean, I guess you were a fan when you and Alice first met, so you guys sharing that back of the bus.
Yeah, his main thing were the older kung fu movies where they would fly up in the air and kick and punch each other, and then they'd reverse the film, and then they go back.
Yeah.
He's just obsessed with those, and we would be cracking up. I mean, they would have somebody on fire jump into some water and then play the film back. So, like, some guy jumped out of the water on fire and started, beating the crap out of everybody. So, that's what we were into mostly. But, a lot of the horror films were just sort of the, standard horror films that you would see, and even some of the old ones like, Cyclops and The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and, films like that.
Wow. I mean, and it's funny because, and I don't know if a lot of people, I'm sure people remember this, but in the 80s, the hard rock heavy metal thing was kind of, I think for me as a fan, it was like if you listen to that music, for some reason you loved horror movies as well. Because they put the, like, and I'm going to the Constrictor with the Man Behind the Mask, but it was just like, it just seemed that those two went hand in hand for some reason.
Yeah, well, Shocker, that amazing song with Paul Stanley and Desmond Child singing the melody. And then, I was suddenly in a room with Michael Anthony and Paul and everything. We're all singing backgrounds. That was a great song. It was a total sort of, pop metal soundtrack for that particular record. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I actually have that soundtrack, to be honest. I think I have the CD. I think Bonfire does a Kiss song on it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Shocker's my favorite.
That is a good hit.
And I would tell Al, because it's like, we run like lambs to the slaughter. And I remember I said, you should change the lyrics to Desmond to, we run like clams in the water. And it was one of the few times I saw the guy laugh. He doesn't laugh that much.
Oh, that's funny, man. That's so good. So, like, getting to Constrictor, like going back to the Constrictor album.
Sure.
And how did they come to Alice? Were you in the picture at that point when they were going to do that song for the movie, for Friday the 13th Part 6?
Yeah. We had come back from L.A., and Beau Hill had insisted, or at least, kind of, he left it up to us, but he was a big he pushed this one. I'm not blaming him, by the way, because it's all of us involved in it.
Yeah.
But he pushed because there was a guy named Anton Fig.
Yeah.
Who I knew. He used to play. He I think he's still in the Dave Letterman show. I don't know. Is that still on?
No, it's
okay, yeah. So
I think he was there till the end.
Yeah, he was there till the end. Fantastic drummer, and and I was going, and I said, would you ever want to tour with us? And he was like, no.
Wow.
He said, I'm doing what I'm doing, so And I said, all right, so that became one of the factors why we didn't use him, and we ended up using a really talented drum machine guy. The guy's really great.
Yeah.
And it just stylistically, it the writing, and then the drums, and then what we came back to LA with, it just did not match up. So we ended up, having to sort of pummel our way through putting, drums on the song, that would fit. So that became our big job with Michael Wagner, who was trying to mix it and get the record back to, where it felt good. And so during that, while we're back in LA, Shep said, hey, Friday the 13th, Frank Mancuso Jr. is the guy who sort of, he owns the franchise now from his dad.
Yeah.
He wanted to do an Alice Cooper song as the theme song. So we wrote a song called, it was called The Man Behind the Mask, but it was a heavy song. And it later we recorded it as Trick Bag, which, it didn't come out that great, but that was sort of our, he comes out of his hole just to rock and roll, and went into the music, and I don't know what was, but I always do that. And anyway, so we started working on it. They really wanted to get contemporary hit radio on board for the record. And that's the record company and management and business. They're all, thinking the same thing. So who do they put us up with? They have us write with the guy who wrote Like a Virgin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So right away we're going, boom, boom, bam, boom, bam. It was like, it just sounded like a disco song. And then, I just, when I left, I was like going, it just seems weird that, Alice is singing such a pretty melody.
Yeah.
The man behind the mask, it's like this massive serial murderer monster guy, and we're singing pretty about him. But Alice and I were going, okay, well, it's a really good song, So I remember sitting there with Frank Mancuso Jr. while they're mixing it.
Yeah.
And he goes, what's this? And I said, I think that's the song for the movie. And he goes, oh, awesome, dude. So we're sitting there, and it goes, ding, 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 and it just goes to this thing, oh, 'cause he's back. And he turned to me and he said, Kane. And I said, yeah. And he goes, is this ever going to rock? And I went, no. And he got up and left. It was pretty funny. Wow. Because he wanted a hardcore Alice Cooper, like, the man, but, that's what he was looking for. So, it's not a rock song, but I really love the song. I think it's a really great song. Yeah, and by the way, I really enjoyed, I tried to do a solo that was almost like a non-statement that just sort of wove in around the music. Mm-hmm. And I'm really, happy with that solo. I thought that was one of the great things that came out of Constrictor, to be honest with you, at the end of all that silliness. So.
Well, and it's funny, too, because, they used Teenage Frankenstein within the movie. Where the guy... Yeah,
well, they used a lot of... They even used Hard Rock Summer.
And I was going to ask you about that song. It was not on Constrictor, right?
No, and, I just to give people an insight, now you have to understand, I came from playing strip clubs on Rock Night in New York, okay? Yeah. And then I told you this, I dealt cards to make money, with this illegal blackjack game where there were guns all over the place. That was how I was surviving.
Yeah.
So suddenly, I'm in Beverly Hills at Shep's mansion on this giant, way up in the hills of Beverly Hills. And Alice and I are like on these lounge chairs around his pool. And we started writing that song. And it just, I don't know, it was one of those songs, the lyrics are very clever and they're all Alice. That's like I wrote lyrics on, almost all the songs I did with them, but that particular song, I'm a streetwise runaway and all that stuff, that's all Alice just sitting there. And the other one that I didn't go near was Prince of Darkness. He just nailed that one. I think I might have mentioned that to you before. So that's all Alice, and we just had this, because of where we were, sitting in paradise. The song has a very upbeat, feel to it, and it's almost like an anthem of, positive anthem about, rocking and being in the USA and just living the life, back in those days.
Yeah.
Where you could walk on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood and hookers would come up to you and just hang out with you, I mean, I didn't necessarily do any business with them, but it was just part of this culture that was like on this street. Like you'd see, the guys from Poison would come driving down with their fringe jackets and their giant Harleys, and you'd just be. It was just like a total free for all, and and all that's been stripped away now. Like if you want to go to the Pacific Coast Highway and park your car at 9 p.m. and just look at the ocean, you can't. The cops will either give you a ticket or tell you to move on. So the whole state has become, really sort of iron-fisted in terms of how the government's working. And now with this pandemic thing, I'm sure it's going to like double up. I mean, they're not going to give any of these freedoms back that they're grabbing at this point. So back in those days, it was just, hard rock summer was the ultimate dream, that you could have it, back in the day. Now it's like, it's a little different. I mean, not that people aren't enjoying themselves. It's still a rocking life that we're leading. It's just back in the day, it was a little bit more debauchery and nudity and drugs and death. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Oh man, that's funny.
It just starts getting really dark, blood and pain, and
We went from sunshine in California to Transylvania and darkness.
Yeah.
So in terms of Constrictor and Raise Your Fist and Yell, both being released on MCA, and your album was as well, was that only a 2-album deal with them for the 2 Alice albums, and then because Alice moved on?
Well, the way these deals go, there isn't somebody making cogent decisions at the top. Let's crunch the numbers. How many did it sell? Okay, let's do the next record and we'll do it this way and blah blah. It's not like that. It's the people running these companies are at the same level as like most of the politicians you see. They're just knuckleheads that are just trying to maintain their paychecks, which is very difficult in the music industry. It's not hard in government. I don't know why I'm talking about government, but in the music industry, the turnover of people getting fired is unbelievable. Even CEOs, they're just moving these people around. It's like a musical chairs. So Shep is smart enough to know that the MCA distribution back in those days, in terms of getting records into different countries and stores and everything, was one of the worst.
Yeah.
So, Shep got us off of MCA and put us in different situations. And at that time, the Geffen record, the Geffen company was interested in me. So I signed, because of Michael Alago, the Metallica guy, he signed me there. And Shep and Alice went on to do other things. But, the way Shep works the room, he could have Alice do 10 records on MCA back in those days. I think he just was looking for, a more viable business model behind, his next release. So
yeah, it's funny because those 2 albums were kind of like Alice's back. They were they were heavier, I think. Alice's, with those.
Well, Raise Your Fist was a lot heavier than anything he'd ever done. Yeah.
And then you go to Trash, and it became more commercial. It was
more Desmond. Well, yeah, and great record. I'm not 100% sure why Desmond didn't do the next record. I don't know why he didn't produce it or write, but I think they're writing again, which is a good deal. And then I've been writing with Alice as well. Maybe he'll do a song, that we're doing together. We'll wait and see. I think, Bob Ezrin is the ultimate arbiter of like what gets on the records or what doesn't. And Bob Ezrin is, one of my close friends as well. He's a good guy, but they got to look at what the album is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to move his career. And he's got the Hollywood Vampires thing as well. So
Sure.
and that's kicking ass. So it's I think the decision making from the chef level is still brilliant. It's the record companies that keep kicking the ball into the wrong end zone.
Yeah, and that's too bad. I mean, that kind of.
Well, it's the record industry isn't over. It's just completely different. Technology comes in and robs people of their comfort zones like constant, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening now, and it is what it is. Now you'll watch. This fact that nobody can play live right now will generate some other fantastic moments and equity sources with the music industry. Somebody's going to come up with something, and I think that I think there's a good thing to every calamity that we go through. So we all have to just try to punch our way through situations like this. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a band from Switzerland called Gotthard.
Yeah,
them.
I've heard of them. They've been around forever.
That's right, and they just released a new album called 13, and it was released on March 13th, Friday the 13th, and they were supposed to have a release party for it, and they weren't able to because of the coronavirus over in Europe, and they just went online and did a 43-minute show in their rehearsal space on YouTube.
Yeah,
and it was great. I've watched it like 4 times.
Yeah, no, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's really funny because everybody comes across this thing like, what is this business structure, and what are the musicians doing and whatever. The main goal here is accessibility to the fans. The fans are the only thing that really, it's the life's blood of all of this stuff. So, from a musician standpoint, that only requires the hardest thing of all, and that's to be very true to yourself with everything you did. With this record, the new record that I did, I made sure that I didn't have. There's a script writer named Larry Gross. He wrote a movie that's pretty old. It's called 48 Hours, and some other ones. The guy's born to write scripts, and he was saying that the thing that you do is you have to keep Mr. Mediocre away from you when you're creating, when you're doing stuff. So when I'm singing a vocal or recording, if I hear something, I think it's good enough. Right away, I sort of question the moment, and we have to sort of pause and see if there's a way, and hopefully your decisions are good. But from a musician standpoint, you have to be absolutely honest and truthful and give the audience, what you truly believe. The music industry, their job, I think, is to make it as easily accessible to the audience. And what you realize now is that fans and music fans, they're the entire deal. So any failures in that process of those two elements, the musicians and the business, is an ultimate failure for the fan. And fans are very smart. They might say the song's really good, but they can tell when somebody got lazy. This is my true belief. They can tell when somebody goes, I'm just going to do a record like the last one, or this song is like that song, or whatever, and not really. The audience, the fans expect you to come up with something that you spit blood to get the truth out and really do what it is that you were trying to, express to them and give them something valuable. And that is what everybody is owed. That's what the fans are owed from the musicians. And like I said, when the music industry kind of fails and they get a little too greedy and they fuck everything up, it's the fans that ultimately get hurt. Musicians are just always going to get hurt. There's no, like if I do a seminar, did I already say this to you?
I don't think so.
Okay. If I do a seminar, and there's young people there and the musicians, I'll just say to them, I say, look, because they're talking about how tough it is and how this is happening and how do we make it in the music industry. I said, well, the first thing you got to do is realize where the music industry, where it comes from. And I said, it started with, mandolin players on the side of the road with little shoes with the curl up with the bells on them, playing. And when rich people came by in their cabbages, they threw, it'd be awesome if they came by in a cabbage.
That'd be fun.
You could eat it. No, but they come by in their carriages and they throw, tomatoes and meat, that's what they throw at you. Like, here you go, nice job. The industry hasn't changed. It's still the same way. So the musicians are always going to get the least blowback in terms of money. So, I say to them, like, look, you want to get into this, you can be a great story. You can make a lot of money. You can do this and that or that. I said, your main goal would be to do something significant that moves people in an honest way. Like, if you can do that, then, you're a real musician and you're on your way to either, to some level of success. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's so true, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if I said this to you before, but I said, in my mind, I said to there was a guy named Art Blakey, okay?
Yeah.
He had this jazz band called the Jazz Messengers. This really is like an older black guy. I don't even know if he's still alive. But he said, somebody asked him, how do I make? And he goes, the only thing you can do is make yourself as great as you can. And if you do that, the world will beat a path to your door. And I'm living proof that that's true, because I practiced so much and I just wanted to do it so bad. I was obsessed with it. Everything around my life crumbled in my desire to be a musician.
Yep.
And, with the way I looked and, the type of thing that I did, the only band in the world that would have signed me is Alice Cooper. And they found their way to my door.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean? So yeah. I always say that to, musicians, is what's inspiring is if you become great enough and you just keep hammering away, you're going to make some noise. And if you just do something really great, I always say the fans are really smart. Yeah. They can tell. They can tell if you're doing something great, and you'll get people that will be, your fans, forever, so.
That's cool. I'm going to let you go in a second. I just had one more question for you.
That's okay, but I just want you to know the drugs are just kicking in, so I'm not going to know where I am in about 10 minutes. No, go ahead.
Okay. I was on YouTube, and I had never seen the video for Rock Doll until last week.
Yeah.
And
last week?
My God. I had never seen it. And I never thought to look it up, and I don't think Much Music ever played it here in Canada. I've probably never seen it on TV, so it wasn't
those
until...
bastards!
I know,
no, I'm kidding.
bastards.
I'm joking.
But actually, on a side note, we have this channel on our cable, and every Sunday and Thursday, they play metal for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And they played Freedom the other day, which was cool.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, which was really cool. And that's
the video where I dropped my pick.
Oh,
but go ahead.
I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah, because watch what my fingers are doing. They did like 5 takes. I dropped my pick every take. No, wait. I'm sorry. I dropped my pick on 2 takes, and that's the footage they used. So I have no idea.
That's hilarious.
So,
and the filming on that is different. Like it's really bright. It almost looks like high def before high def. It's really cool filming on that video.
Yeah, no, they had. It's really funny because. Geez, I don't know if I should tell you this. Let's put it this way: there were some budget arguments going on.
Right.
Record company management.
Yeah.
And no, I can't tell you the story.
Okay, that's okay.
I just realized, the ending is a little too intense. So, yeah. Well, but anyway, we had a great crew there. And by the way, Lon Friend, who's a very famous writer, for rock music, he brought Jamie Summers there, the star from the the porno star from the Brat series.
Right.
So if you write in, do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I do. I know.
Okay, because to admit to that to a million people might not be the good. But so, yeah, he Jamie Summers. If you look it up, Jamie Summers. I think it's SOM. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I had a major crush on her.
Yeah.
Not that I look at porn. No, I'm kidding. No, but I just fell in love with her. I think she did a Penthouse thing, and I was just so they walk in together, and I was like going, oh my God. So I ended up taking her to a couple of events and stuff, and we became semi-friends there for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
So that to me is the other memorable moment, other than the fact that I dropped a pic. But the rest of it, it's kind of a blur.
So. Oh, it's a cool video. It's just I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Well, Alice is just so amazing on it. I mean, like if you just take everybody else out of it, and you just look at his parts.
Yeah.
Talk about telling the guy to on, and he just boom, he turns on. It's just it happened the first night at the Welcome to My Nightmare tour, where it's on tape. He walks out and just owns the world. It's his first show when he's not high. Incredible. And Freedom is an incredible example of that. It's like, we're going to shoot, go, and Alice just explodes every time, spitting, he's breaking canes, not me, but well, actually, he did break, no, I'm kidding. But he's breaking stuff on the stage, and, just an amazing guy, really amazing.
Oh, as soon as he comes out, he's like, his stage presence is just so big.
It's crazy, man. I remember that first night looking at. Actually, you know what? Was it Reading? Not Reading. Was it Reading Festival? I can't remember what festival. I think it was Reading. I was one of those times I'm standing on my riser and I'm looking at him and I was going, he's reaching the person, like thousands and thousands of people way in the back. Alice is able to communicate with just about every individual in the audience. It was pretty amazing.
I love going to see Alice. I've probably seen him 6 or 7 times with different.
So you take see Alice? I do too once in a while. No, I'm kidding.
I haven't had to yet, but you never.
Yeah, I started as soon as it came out. I just said, anything that's going to be fun with that, I'm doing it.
Exactly.
I've been hitting that since I was 15. No, I'm kidding. Anyway,
you're killing me.
That's ridiculous. Anyway, we'll keep that in. No. So anyway, yeah. So what else? I'm not in a rush. So any other questions?
Well, I wanted to get back to the Rock Doll video because I kind of went on the other tangent of going to Freedom, but watching that video and the part where you pick the female up by, I guess it would be her bra or her shirt.
Yeah, they put a special bra harness around her. Yeah.
I was like, that is so 80s. That was like, I was thinking.
It was so 80s. And you know who the model was?
I don't, and I was just going to ask you that, actually.
Ginger Miller. She was Penthouse Pet of the Year.
Oh, she was a beautiful girl.
Oh, my God. I remember when I was talking to somebody, and she came in, they said, Kane, this is Ginger, this is Kane Roberts. She said, hey, how you doing? I went, I'm pretty good. How you doing?
No kidding.
I mean, it was just like, wow, So,
it was. She played a good part in the video because I remembered you on stage, and then I remembered
her. That's it. Yeah, and the thing is that I'll never forget. I said to the guy that directed it was Wayne Isham.
Yeah.
And you know who that is?
Yeah, he did some Motley stuff. I think he said.
Yeah, he
did stuff back then.
Didn't he do Crazy from the Heat, or it's the video with Steve Vai, and I think that was Wayne Isham, wasn't it?
I am not sure.
Yeah, with David Lee Roth. Anyway, so yeah, and by the way, another story on that shoot was, we're there, we're shooting for a few hours and everything. Then I'm sitting there, and Joe Perry came to the shoot.
No way.
And he knew that I was from Boston. Cool. And he said hi. I mean, he was probably there to see Wayne Isham.
Yeah.
But he came up to me and said hi. I was like, wow, you know.
That would be cool.
Because I'm a fanboy as much as anybody with some of these people. And, you know, he was like, you know, Joe Perry.
Joe Perry, yeah.
There's nobody that ever played riffs like he did on those albums, those earlier albums. Nobody's ever come close. So
yeah. I agree. Those first 4 Aerosmith albums. To self-titled.
Nobody had any idea what they were even listening to.
Oh man,
just how great it was, you know.
Oh, so good, so good. I think "At Your Wings" is probably my favorite one, but I love.
Yeah.
Those are killer albums, and I mean that would be so cool to, you know. There's Joe Perry. That would be pretty.
Oh yeah, he said, "Hey Kane, you're from Boston?" And I went, "Yes, it's the same voice I used for Ginger Miller just a minute ago."
Oh man,
this isn't good. Actually, you gotta, you know, but
it's all good. It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for what I've got for you tonight, Kane.
Well, I think the only thing that I'd like to say is to watch out for the director's cut.
Okay.
For beginning, you know, watch out for the director's cut for beginning of the end. You know, it's a radical change from the video that's there. Okay. We have another one coming out called "Leave Me in the Dark" that deals with some very, you know, painful and dark issues that are, you know, in our culture, you know, today. Mm. And then the last one is going to be. I can't mention her name until I do it, but, you know, a pretty big, you know, kind of a celebrity from a different world will be in it and stuff like that. And then, you know, I'll see if I'm going to keep, you know, recording and staying at it. I mean, my whole thing is my relationship with the fans. And so that's the main thing that I want to preserve more than, you know, I got a request to do a Monsters of Rock cruise, and it just didn't fit into, you know, the way I'm looking at all of this. And, you know, and by the way, Monsters of Rock is a fantastic, you know, business model. It's a fantastic opportunity for people. I just really respect those guys and love what they're doing. I mean, they're similar to the Frontiers, you know, guys, in that it takes a very core belief. Mm-hmm. You know, to put these things together and sell them and manage them, and, you know, and try to make money off of it. You know, it's pretty awesome. But, you know, so my point is that I've got a bunch of videos coming up and one kind of special event that's probably less than a month away. So, you know, just hope everybody hangs in there with me, and that's it.
Yeah, I'll be watching for that new video and whatever else you're doing, because I'm always kind of paying attention to what you are doing. So.
All right, Tyson. Thanks, man.
Okay, man. Have a good night. And
have a good night.
Okay. Take it easy.
Rock on.
Rock.
Yep.
Okay.
Last night, and I'm glad I didn't hear the phone ring, 'cause your voice still shuts me down. And just the thought of you still gets me where I can't do anything. And I know I was out of my league when I gave you everything. And falling down